Welcome to AQA Geography. Today we're going to look at the command word of to what extent or do you agree. That would typically be 6 or 9 marks. The to what extent or do you agree command word, which is 6 to 9 marks, just means examine the evidence to form an opinion and judge the success or the importance of something. Make sure you put a figure on it, whether it's 7 out of 10 or 70%, and that will really help to structure your ideas. As ever, include data, geography words, place names, examples. Also, where you can, include SEE, social, economic and environmental. Those kind of things will help you. First thing to look at will be the 2 points to support what you're saying, the 70% or 60%. Then look at the other argument, see how people are going to argue things differently. After you've made each one of those, you're going to do peel, so point, evidence, explain, link back to the question, and make a mini decision. And that's the mini set of scales there, mini set of scales there, before reaching your final decision. There's quite a lot of information on this slide here, so just feel free to pause it, have a glance through it, and just get a feel before we go through this in some detail. So pause now. Because this question talks about the extent of something, we generally recommend that you use some kind of number line or scales. And depending what the question is, often it's better if you agree with something to choose the number 6 or 7 or 60% or 70% or 3 or 4. 30 or 40%. That will really help you to give both sides of the argument, so you don't get stranded on one side of the argument without being able to make the other opinion matter. In the blue box on the bottom left of this screen, we've got to what extent has urban planning scheme been a success in an LIC or NEE city, and again make sure you name one that you have studied. You could come up with some kind of decision on this, 60 or 70% or 30 or 40%, or give it a number out of 10. Anything like that is fine. It will really help you to structure your answer. Your first sentence is going to be all about the case study, introduce it, give the place name, so that's going to be that there. Number 2 is going to be your first peel paragraph. Your peel paragraph, so make your point, give evidence, explain it, link it back to the question. Then the bit that people don't often do is make that mini decision, drop that in there somewhere. The mini decision, once you have done these things in the green box on the right, so the positives are, this is due to, this means that, therefore, your mini decision is that word there. This is important because, this is important due to. You've made a decision. That's assessment objective 3 on the exam board marking criteria. That's the application, the decision making. So, we're going to look at the third paragraph. The third paragraph is looking at another thing that supports what you're saying. And that will give you the percentages to outweigh the fact that it's more than half or less than half. Make another peel decision, which is your point, evidence, explain, link back to the question. And at the end, of course, make your next mini decision, which is this is important because, this is important due to or significant because. Number 4, your fourth paragraph is going to be arguing the case against, and that's going to say why you don't agree with something or why you do agree with something. So, depends what you've said, but look at the opposite point of view. So some advice here is, however, it can be seen that X or Y or Z is bad because or due to, this is shown by, meaning that. Then make a mini decision. So your mini decision will be, this is significant because, this is important because. Once you've done that, weigh up the evidence and make your final decision. In the box on the bottom right, you've got, in the pink box, overall, to a large extent, I think that, and then sum up your mini decisions. The next slide is going to have all the information on the left removed. We can move the information over to the left and we've got space for some possible answers. So on the left we've got the exam structure, which is the intro sentence. Then you've got your first peel paragraph supporting what you say, your second peel paragraph supporting what you say, then your third peel paragraph which gives the opposite point of view, then weigh up and make your final decision. Some support materials are down the centre, but the bit we're going to look at on this slide is the answer on the right hand side. Pause here if you want to try and fill in the gaps yourself, but we're going to go through this in a little bit more detail in a moment. So, here's the first sentence. It says, to a large extent, I think that the £1 billion spent on the Rosina favela in Rio de Janeiro has been a success, and it's the favela Beiro scheme. The advantage one is the main social advantages are, it's talking about schools, the fact that half of people at the age of 14 drop out of schools, this is due to, and then say this is important because how has the £1 billion that's been spent, how has that helped schools? Why is it important that people stay on? Talk about jobs and then tax, and then the tax can be used for infrastructure, which is roads and railways and things like healthcare and education. Advantage number two, you're going to talk more social advantages and think about the increase in healthcare. Currently, there's only 55% in some favelas that access healthcare. This means that. And then, how has the Favela Beiro scheme, which is the urban planning scheme, how has that helped? Well, it's helped because now there's home visits. And this is important because that's your mini decision. The opposite side of this is your third paragraph or your fourth paragraph. It's going to be the disadvantage. An economic disadvantage is that a third of the people are in formal jobs, meaning that. So even though it might have helped people into work, they might be informal jobs, and that means they're not paying tax, which means that they haven't got any sick pay, they haven't got any contracts, they haven't got any holiday pay, and this is significant because weigh those things up and reach an overall decision, which is overall it can be seen that the social impacts are quite successful, however the economic impacts might not be as successful for the Favela Beiro scheme, the $1 billion that was spent. The key points to remember for the to what extent or do you agree question is make sure you look at both points of view. Definitely put a number at the start, whether it's 7 out of 10 or 70% or 3 out of 10 or 30%. Give 2 points to support what you're saying. With Peel, make a mini decision. 1 point against. With Peel, a mini decision. Then make your final decision. If you want to include SEE, social, economic and environmental, that will help you answer, as will geography words, place names, examples and data.